but really have those difficult conversations and maybe make them a little easier?
Yeah, so let's start by differentiating between two different kinds of conflict, because I'm a big proponent of one kind of conflict and somebody working to rid the world of the other kind of conflict. So in teams, there is a kind of conflict that's very productive and very healthy. It's very uncomfortable. So I'm not saying that it's easy or that it's something you look forward to, but that kind of conflict I talk about as a kind of tension. So if you're to think about it viscerally and what it feels like, it kind of feels like doing yoga because somebody's forcing you to stretch in a direction you've never gone before. Maybe you're an operations person and your teammates in sales, and they're forcing you to think about, how the customer thinks about the problem, and you're just thinking about how to ram it through your supply chain. So it's a stretch and it hurts, but as you stretch that way, you're getting better, more agile, healthier. That's in contrast to what I would describe as the conflict that's more like friction. And that's not at all like yoga. That's like getting a blister. And we all know
Mm.
there is nothing good. I actually have a terrible blister on my foot right now. It's slowing me down. And that's where, there's nothing constructive coming out of the conflict. It's only making you question yourself or despise the other person. It's slowing the team down. It is not a good thing. So, first thing in teams, and if we're going to systematize it, is we want to systematize the healthy form of conflict so that we get a lot more of it than we normally get. And
Mm.
we want to recognize the unhealthy form of conflict so that we can call it out when we see it and have that difficult conversation about, feedback or what's not working. So I think that's a really important place to start, is by stopping people from this default assumption that conflict means we're doing it wrong. Conflict means the team is broken. There is a wide variety of conflict that's the sign you're doing it right. Business requires conflict. So we want to try and systematize that. It's the other kind. So I'll just let that sink in for a sec, and you can ask me where you want to go with that.
So, what is the cadence? What does that process look like to systematize it?
Yeah, great question. So there's an exercise that I can link in the show notes to a page that has all these tools and that sort of thing. So I can do that for your listeners for sure. So the way we do it is we use an exercise to help people think about the tensions that are supposed to be there. And that exercise asks three questions. So, for each role on your team, the first question: what's the unique value you bring to this conversation, that your role brings to this conversation? That's a function of your expertise, your experience, your responsibilities, your superpowers. And as you think that through, you realize, oh, what somebody else is bringing to the table is very different than what I'm bringing to the table. So that's the first question. Second question: which stakeholders who aren't in the room is your role responsible for advocating for? Who are you thinking about?
Mm.
Who are you considering when you bring different perspectives and you advocate for things? That's the second question. And you'll find in most teams and in most rooms, you're representing different people. And then the final question in the exercise is, and therefore, what is the tension you're obliged to put on our discussions and deliberations? And when you go through this exercise, first of all, it's super fun exercise because there's a lot of humorous, sometimes use of expletives, as people realize that their teammates aren't intentionally being jerks, but in fact that their roles require them to pay attention to different things. And when you walk out at the end, you realize what and who you're fighting for, but also what and whom your teammates are fighting for. And it's amazing. So I'll give you a true story. So a real company I was working with, it was a food company. And we were doing this exercise, and the head of sales was in the room. We're like, okay, what is your unique value on the team? He's like, well, I'm the one who understands our customers, which is the grocery chains. And so I know each of their strategies like the back of my hand. I know what they're trying to do. So I know this company was a meat company. So I know exactly how to tailor and differentiate our products to suit them. So one of their grocery chains has, they're very much into like clean food, raised without antibiotics, all those sorts of things. Whereas another customer is all about things that are ready to eat when you get home. So there we're packaging things already marinated. And oh, that's so interesting. Okay. So you're thinking your stakeholders are the grocers, and your unique value is really about differentiating the product and customizing and all that good stuff. And that's the differentiation you're fighting for. Okay, great. That's awesome. And as I'm sort of making eye contact with him, all of a sudden out of the corner of my eye, I spot the head of operations, and he looks as if somebody's, those things they have at the car dealerships, the things that they blow air into and they dance.
Yeah.
It looked like
Yep.
he was one of those, and somebody unplugged the fan. He just went.
Eh.
So I looked and I said, Randy, what's up? What? And he said, oh my goodness, this is making everything so clear, because my unique value here is to make sure we standardize and make things consistent and more efficient. And I'm thinking about the people on the line, and I'm thinking about
Mm.
the people in supply chain, and every time you're suggesting a differentiation, I'm thinking we're going to have to change out the line. That requires a different kind of packaging, like, right?
Mhm.
And
Conflict. Yeah.
right. But exactly the right kind of conflict. And so what happened was, they had a customer come not that long after we'd done the exercise, asking for this giant order of ribs. And they were going to put it on their July front page of the flyer. We're going with ribs for barbecue season for the long weekend. And, the sales guy was thrilled. He's going to make his quarter on this giant
Mhm.
order. But interestingly, he now understood that, oh, I bet Randy's not going to be happy with this, because he understood that, first of all, ribs require the most expensive line, the boning line, the most
Mm.
expensive line. He knew HR was going to look at him like, where are we going to get that many people who can do that work, that many skilled butchers? He knew that marketing, he was going to be in the bad books with marketing, because, so far pigs don't come as just ribs, and marketing was going to have to figure out how to sell a lot of hams that month. And it just was fantastic, because they were all sensitized now, and they could actually even have the fight for one another. So operations could say, oh, marketing, goodness, now I'm thinking about, like, all of a sudden what this is going to look like from your end, and the campaigns we're going to have to spin up. And so systematizing the healthy, productive tensions that are supposed to be there means that that conversation in past would have been very, very negative. Like, oh, sure, making your quarter, but I'm going to miss every scrap
Mm.
rate number. I'm going to get slaughtered, no pun intended, in that quarter. Well, your bonus is through the roof. So they now had a way to talk about this. And when they could talk about it that way, they could say, look, this is the right thing for the company, but because of it, we need to move some budget around, and we need to change some goals for that month, so that we can hire out, we can contract out more labor,
Mm.
that we can, bring in a new marketing campaign to deal with, how many other pieces of pig we have. So it was great, because when they understood that those tensions are supposed to be there, it's a sign they're doing it right, they could have it without it being still difficult. It was a difficult conversation, but it
Yeah.
it wasn't personal. It was fantastic.